Hey guys, it's Sarah. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to another Sims 4 speed build. So today we are building a heart-themed building and I'm kind of excited about this. I hope you guys enjoy it. But basically, the top part of the build is half of a heart shape and then the bottom half of the build is it reflected in the water. And so, of course, the inspiration picture for this came from Pinterest. That's where I get all my inspiration. So I'll go on and put that picture on the screen now where you guys can see what I was going for. And I just really loved this build. And so I was kind of trying to recreate it. And I feel like it looks good. It definitely looks better in the inspiration picture. I feel like the reflections are a little bit harder to see maybe in The Sims, or it's a little bit harder to kind of tell what you're looking at. But yeah, that is what it is. So I'll go on and tell you guys that so that you kind of know what to be looking for, which you guys have already seen the thumbnail. I will tell you though that for the thumbnail, I did add a little tiny bit of editing to the water area so that it would be a little bit more clear what you guys were looking at, because I felt like it really wasn't, to be honest. I stared at the picture for the longest time and just tried to figure out if I didn't know what I was looking at, would I know that that was a heart? Because I feel like if you don't know what you're looking at, your eye's kind of drawn to the top part of the build and you don't notice the water and you don't notice the reflection. You guys let me know if you noticed the whole heart shape when you saw this picture or when you saw the thumbnail. Let me know if you were like, oh, that's a heart, or if you just noticed the top part of the build. Because I feel like the top part of the build kind of looks like a snail at times if you don't notice the bottom part of the build. And you can kind of see that right now because all we have is the shell part of the build. So I am about to add the water, but right now we haven't had any water. So it just kind of looks, it's a funny shape, to be honest. But when the water comes in, I feel like if you're looking for it, you can see it, but you guys let me know what you think. It definitely didn't translate as well as the inspiration picture, but it was fun anyway. So I hope you guys enjoy it. And I still wanted to share it with you guys. So I made the shape of the top part of the build with roofs, of course. And just in case anyone doesn't know this, I know a lot of you guys probably do, but if you want to be able to change the roof shape a little bit more than you normally can, if you click on the roof and then you click, I think it's the shift key and then the letter C together, it will create a few more options for you to be able to move the roof or bend it. And so it lets you get a little bit better curves sometimes. And I didn't know that for the longest time. And so maybe that'll help someone if you guys are interested in how you can make shapes like this with the roofs. Because for the longest time, I did not know how people were building like this. And I actually downloaded one house from the gallery and I can't remember which one it was or who made it. I can't even remember that. But it was such a cool build and it had all these curves in the roof and it was kind of this circular, not circular shape, but it was definitely very curvy and I could not figure out how to make the roofs like that. And when I downloaded it from the gallery, I saw that it had more options than when you normally click on a roof. But if you guys are ever wondering about that, you can get like 2 more options. I think it's not a whole lot, but it does help a little bit with the curves. But anyway, I made the shell of the house using the roofs. And I wasn't totally sure what I was going to do for the windows of this build. You can kind of see the windows go through a lot of evolutions. And I actually took out a lot of the footage of me dealing with the windows because it was just a long time. And I didn't figure anyone would want to see that. And then I had used that item from the Spa Day pack that's called Stony Goodness Slab, I think. And so I had used that with the tool mod to kind of make an outline of the build, so that I could add windows and you wouldn't see all the jagged edges, if that makes sense. I always say this, but I'm terrible at explaining stuff, so I don't know if that makes any sense at all. But basically, I have done builds like that before, and you can kind of make different shapes out of the windows if you add an object to cover up some of the edges. But anyway, I did do that, and then I ended up adding it on the back as well, which really is pointless because I ended up not putting anything else on the back of the build, and it's kind of covered up with landscaping, so I probably should have deleted those, to be honest. But that was my plan with the windows, but then this is such an oddly shaped house that it was not working well, and I really did not like the way that it was looking. So then I kind of decided that I would just remove all the walls and let this be a build that was just completely open. And I don't love doing builds like that because I would much rather have walls and have windows and it be a functional build, because otherwise it's not, very functional if you have the seasons pack. So I did try that, and you guys saw a little bit of that footage, but I did cut that out as well because it took a minute, and then it took a minute to get everything back on there. But this is how the windows end up. So I ended up grabbing one of the just plain modern windows. I think it's a base game window. And then I kind of just layered them around, and I had to use the tool mod to push them down into the ground because I couldn't just place them normally because that leaves these kind of weird gaps and stuff like that. And then the top of the build is so thin that I couldn't place them normally like that. So I did use the tool mod, and I kind of had to push them down into the ground after I placed them. And then I had to go back in a few places and add another window that I sized down completely with the tool mod so you can't see it at all. But I had to do that just to kind of make the wall see-through, because even though we can place the windows wherever we want now and you can like overlap them and everything, and it's not as glitchy as it once was, it still won't let you place them in between floors. So you can't place a window like halfway between the first floor and the second floor because it'll only show through on one floor, which is a little bit frustrating to me. I feel like you see stuff that everybody wants sometimes. Like everybody has something in The Sims that they wish they had, or that they wish they would add to the game or they would fix. But windows is like my number one thing. I wish we had more modern windows. And I know this is a little bit weird, but I kind of wish that we had a way to turn the walls into windows, like just a very modern looking thing, like floor to ceiling window, and you could drag it to expand it like the walls. I know that sounds totally bizarre, and it probably would be very difficult to actually add into the game, but that's what I dream about in The Sims, is just more modern windows that would take up the whole entire wall. With no frames also. Like, I like it better when you don't see as many frames. That's one thing I don't like about the exterior of this build, because I had to use the small window and the one tile window, and so it's just frames all the way across the front of the build, which I just don't love. But you know what? It looks better than the first two options, so I'll stick with it. I think it actually turned out pretty well considering everything else I tried. So that is what I did with the front of the build, but it took long enough that I was not going to do it for the back of the build. So that's pretty much why the back of the build is empty, like I was talking about earlier, because I just did not want to spend the time to do that again. And it wasn't as simple with windows as just copying it with the tool mod and pasting it back there. And so yeah, I gave up on that. But at least the front of the build does kind of have a modern look about it, because I couldn't figure out any other windows to add to this build other than very modern windows, because this is a very modern build. And so I didn't want to put any like regular windows on it, and I couldn't come up with anything. I thought I was about to have to delete the whole thing, honestly. But for the interior of the house, this ended up being a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom house. And the bathroom is enclosed, and I don't really like it very much because it's kind of sticking out from the top of the build. And technically, I could have covered up those roofs, like the walls that came with the roofs. I could have covered those up with the tool mod, but then I ended up placing the bathroom there anyway, and so I just left the walls, and then I try to cover it up a little bit with landscaping so it's not super noticeable. And I don't feel like it's super noticeable, but it does kind of mess with the reflection just a little bit in the water, because you know, it doesn't have as strong of a curve there because there actually is something back there. And so yeah, I was a little bit disappointed with that. I probably should have placed the bathroom somewhere else and then just got rid of those walls completely so that the heart shape would be more complete. But I think at that point when I added the bathroom, I thought that that was going to be the only enclosed room that this build had. But then you guys can see the kitchen right now, and that did end up being enclosed. So I could have added it over there. But it kind of works out as well a little bit, maybe, because the bathroom is totally enclosed, and so you can't see it through the windows, with this house having like all these windows covering up the front wall. I know that bugs a lot of people when you have bathrooms that have floor to ceiling windows in The Sims, even though it's The Sims and they don't care. I know that bugs a lot of people because it's not very realistic. So maybe it worked out better just having the bathroom totally covered up like that anyway. But then the bedroom is in a little bit of a loft area. You guys saw me decorating that, and it's pretty small, and it's not enclosed. It's not by itself. So it's, I don't know, maybe it does count like it's enclosed because it's up in a loft area. I'm not sure, but there's no actual walls on it. It's just a stairwell, so it's not actually walls. But I did get a pretty good sized kitchen in this build and a living room as well. But to be honest, the main focus of this build was the exterior, because I really wasn't thinking that anyone would actually want to play with this house. And I just kind of wanted to see if I could build it in The Sims. And so the interior isn't that great, to be honest. But at first I was going to do a red interior, or kind of, it was maybe more of a like a purpley red color. But I was going to do that because this was a Valentine's Day build. But I didn't like it, so I did end up changing it back to really neutral colors, because the colors that I had did not look good from the outside. Like, they were fine on the inside, but when I would kind of move the camera back and look at it from back here, it didn't look good with the darker colors. So I did change that to a kind of like a beige color and a lot more neutral colors. But anyway, for the landscaping right beside the door, I actually had to place some of the landscaping in the basement and then use the tool mod to move it up to the ground floor so that that area would be functional. And then when I went to play test it, it still wasn't functional. So I had to take just a little bit of the water away so that your Sims could walk around it. Because I don't think it was the plants. Well, I mean, I know it wasn't the plants because I placed them in the basement. But I think it was the roof. The roof was extending out too far and Johnny Zest could not walk through it. So I did have to move my water a little bit, which was kind of sad. But other than that, the landscaping is super simple. It's basically just a bunch of stuff around the water line and then some stuff around the bathroom area to kind of cover up that wall. And then the back of the build, like I said, is just completely covered up. There's no decorations back there or windows or anything like that. So that is it for this build. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. I always love hearing from you guys. I hope you all have a very happy Valentine's Day, and hopefully I will talk to you guys soon with another speed build.